Student Services Committee meeting for the School District of Waukesha Board of Education. I would like to verify that the meeting has been properly posted.
Yes.
Very good, thank you. I would also like to note that Natalie Gren has been excused from this evening's meeting. And then we are into our opportunity for public comment. Are there any speakers signed up?
No, there aren't.
Very good. All right. So seeing none, we can move forward to an action item. We're looking to approve the minutes from the Student Services Committee meeting back on May 6th, 2025. Is there any questions or modifications? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
All right. Motion by Ms. Kozlowski and seconded by Mr. Brooks. Any other discussion? All right. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes 5-0. 4-0, thank you for that correction. All right, and then moving into our second action item, we have a discussion and possible action to approve revision to policy 8451, pediculosis or head lice. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
Thank you, Mr. Harland. Yes, that's how I pronounce it as well, so I hope the same. So head lice, obviously an exciting topic for everyone here in this policy. This change really reflects some Neola guidance along with the National Association of School Nurses language. And so we'll kind of go through some of the changes and recommendation of that best practice. I am trying to mirror here. Give me one moment. Oh, it is back there. There we go. Okay, so just I wanted, before we get into some of the language change specifically, just wanted to really provide a summary of what the NASN language says. So obviously head lice is infestation. It's common. It's a common concern worldwide, both social and medical implications with it. In the U.S., it's estimated that 6 to 12 million head lice infestations occur in children 3 to 11 years of age each year. I read a statistic that about $500 million a year is spent on treatment of head lice. The infestations are most likely to occur in preschool and elementary age students and their household members, regardless of socioeconomic status or any geographic region. A head lice infestation is not a communicable disease. There are no health risks associated with head lice. Head lice infestation, including no live lice and no NIT policies. I believe I'm correct in saying that NITs are eggs that are going to be hatched, causes unnecessary school absences for students and loss of parent workdays and family wages. Just kind of a change in our process that is one of the key pieces to think about. And then I have highlighted that really exclusion from school, which I'll share some data at the end, can adversely affect students emotionally, socially, academically, right? Why is somebody not here anymore? Did you hear what they have? What's going on? All the things that happen at the elementary age with something like that, possibly. Continuing, the American Academy of Pediatrics and the CDC advocate for practices of for the exclusion of whole classroom screenings and the exclusion of any students being excluded from school with NITs or live lice, that be discontinued. That's a practice they recommend not happen. Schools should not exclude students for active infestation or when NITs remain after appropriate lice treatment. And we currently advocate for evidence-based prevention measures in the district that include assisting parents with identification. We send information home already as part of that, and then talk about ways to treat it and what to do next. So we already do that in our policy, but our current policy does exclude students from school based on NITs and live lice. And then finally, those two organizations assert that treatment should only be initiated when at least one live louse has been identified, since it's likely that the child's infestation has been present for 30 days or more prior to even even the identification of the live lice. The affected child at school poses little risk of transmission to others should they remain in class. So the 3 years of data that I compiled, and we have it back to 2015, even though it's a little bit intermittent, 140 students, mostly elementary students, there was a couple middle school students, missed 116 total school days. So these were hours missed of students being sent home early, as our policy says that when it's found, students go home, and all the times are there for when the students were sent home in the data. Immediately because of the discovery of live lice or nits. 16 students, or approximately 11.4%, who had the lice had at least one or more time again at a minimum 2-month interval where they also had lice as a repeat person. Somebody could have had it over the course of a couple of years after 2 months every time, but it is rare that students who maybe say they go home and treat it and maybe don't treat it continue to spread that even though they're in school. I think the concern is always what is happening. What I believe this data says is that when students go home, their families and treat the lice, and students come back and they're moving forward accordingly with the proper treatment that we expect to have happen. So really the spirit of the policy language change is to keep students in school, have that treatment happen after school at the end of the school day, and then have students continue on and come to school and not be sent home, but for us to continue to work with the family to make sure treatment is happening as we currently do, based on all the days missed and some of the other things and some of the information around it not being a hazard and the recommendations of that, it potentially not being really spread continuously, something to consider.
Thank you for that update. Are there any questions or comments about the potential revision? It's kind of.
Hi, thank you. I'm a little bit confused because I know many years ago, teaching in the classroom, the reason for the checks, and I remember the whole class checks with the gloves and the little, large toothpicks going through hair, which I agree is not the way it should be handled. But the concern was that it is spread among young students because of the close proximity with, just the way that they play together. Sometimes their heads are together when they're working on things. I guess I'm wondering where that changed, when it comes to the infestation and the spreading of, head lice, because it in the past, it has spread through classrooms, and that was one of the reasons why you want to identify, and students, were sent home, which I also can see we can look at that and rework that. But I'm just wondering, when did that data change, and could you speak to that a little bit more? I mean, I've read the report, but I'm wondering, how did that suddenly change for after 30, 20 years? It suddenly is no longer a contagious condition. Mm-hmm.
It's a great question that I don't necessarily have the answer to when the change from the National Nurses Association happened specifically. So I can't answer that question. I know that our district nurses attend the conference for professional development, shared obviously the information and guidance accordingly. I then looked at policies around the area, and they're mixed. Some follow this guidance, others are similar to what we currently have, and some are some of the changes that are for potential that are for discussion. So I think the biggest thing really is if 116 days of school were missed and we can have students remain for the day and still be treated after school and at that point not be contagious, is that spreading and is that making a difference, or is that remainder of the day, them still getting school, them not being singled out for having to leave school, and then getting treated like we would expect to be treated immediately after school, is that going to keep this data the same? And I believe that it can if we continue to have good, we will continue to have good correspondence home around lice and whatever else. So as far as the spreading of it goes, the last slide prior to this one that talks about the CDC and American Association of Pediatrics talks about it being present for 30 days. it talks about it, when you have the identification of a live lice, that is probably already there, and that infestation might be happening in that time. So I guess that slide is interesting, and I don't know when they came up with that. So I don't have a great
Does it
answer
have-
medically for it.
Okay, gotcha. Because if you have live lice, lice lay eggs, so it's a cyclical pattern. The eggs keep hatching, they have more eggs, so I'm not sure where the 30 days and then we're all good to go came in. But I just have two other questions. So the second question is, I remember as a parent, getting notified that note will go home, very general, head lice has been, discovered in your classroom, check your students', hair. And as a parent, I appreciated that because, sometimes you would normally check, but when you knew that there was an actual, outbreak or of some sort, will there be any type of communication to parents that, without identifying the student, which really never happened, anyway, but will there be any kind of heads up that your child's classroom, lice was discovered, please, extra care, check your, student's hair? Will that be provided to the other parents in the class of the other students?
Yeah, we currently do that, and we would let classrooms know. It just, that's where it would stop. It would be a general statement.
Okay, so that'll continue? Okay. And then just my last question, when it comes to reentry to school, I noticed it just references students may return to the classroom after the appropriate use of the lice treatment, yada, yada. Routine rechecks are not required. Is there any follow-up, discreetly, though, to the student that was identified and then stayed in school, but then went home, parent was notified? Is there any follow-up a day or two later that treatment was provided and there was an effort to, remove the nits, the live lice? I mean, is there any follow-up? It didn't mention that, so I'm just wondering, what does that look like? What would that look like for us? Would we have the student, would the nurse be able to call, write a pass, have the student come down and kind of take a look, ask them about it? Oh, were you able to get shampoo? I mean, is there a follow-up? Because this doesn't allude to any type of a follow-up. So you're just going on the word like, okay, we sent you home with a note, but follow-up, did that happen? Did the treatment happen?
Yeah, there currently, there would not be follow-up. So what would happen with this is that you're talking with the parents and providing the resources as it says, which is what happens now. And that conversation with the parents and the nurses are, absolutely, we're going to do that. Thank you for letting me know. Do you need any support? No, we know where to go. We're going to go here, here, here. And that's what would happen. The follow-up, I don't know exactly what it looks like now, but there wouldn't be follow-up in the future. There would be a trust that would be happening. And if someone is not doing that currently, so if you're getting treated and you follow up the next day, everything is still going to be there. I don't believe that we're following up a week later or other times. It is a trust factor now that in the initial conversation, what's said is what's going to happen. So that's why I in the data, took the repeat offenders, individuals who maybe didn't have the proper treatment or the treatment didn't work consistently. And so they do exist, and that is something that we don't see a lot of among all of the students, is this individuals consistently not doing the treatment. Generally, they do. So there isn't a lot of follow-up now. There might be a next day, hey, did this happen? There wouldn't be under this policy. The initial conversation would be enough.
Is there a reason that would be taken out of this policy, though? That complimentary follow-up? How did it go? Do you need any other further assistance? Anything you struggled with? Any questions about,
I think the initial conversation is the conversation. And so the next day, you can take a look at the student, and this is part of the policy, not calling the student down and looking a week or two later, because everything takes time and difference. And that's where I think the initial conversation is the conversation that matters, and the follow-up conversation doesn't need to exist, because the initial conversation will provide the resources and go from there. If a student is seen to have it moving forward, I'm assuming that the classroom teacher has an awareness of it, and if there's some noticing of it, they're going to talk to the school nurse once again, as currently happens now. but there's not a specific follow-up with the school nurse to check for these things in this policy, because the initial conversation is where it starts and ends, per se.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions regarding the potential changes to policy 8451? Ms. Kozlowski.
Debating, talking about it, because I find this topic to be disgusting. But, so I'm trying to think about myself as a parent of child with and other parent, and just thinking about the responsibility of whether or not we should be sending the child home immediately versus the end of the day. I can't predict how long lice has been active once it's been identified, but it is, at that point, then able to spread. And just like any other, I mean, if we had somebody that gets a stomach flu or a headache or a migraine, I mean, oftentimes they're going home sick, which I would call this equivalent. So getting them out, getting them treatment that they can return the next day, I would be far more in favor than letting them sit, especially the population of students that we know that this is prevalent in, where they play hard and are doing other things. I just would prefer if they went home once identified, treated, and then returned to school.
Thank you. Any other comments? So my question, I guess, was more so in regards to, you had commented that our staff will offer to provide support. What does that look like in terms of, what do we do as a district to currently support families that are identified under this policy?
So prior to the school year, our health room assistants or district nurses send out information around head lice. I don't know exactly, I don't have that exact wording or what it looks like, but it's an awareness of it. And then when identification happens, they will reach out to the families and then provide resources of what are the treatments, what are the FDA-approved treatments per our current policy. So that's pretty much how it goes. And the lice are noticed by, obviously, school staff that see them, and then they head to the nurse's office per the policy we have, and then that conversation happens with parents around treatments and options, and resources are sent, and go from there. So, and the expectation is they're doing treatment and then coming back the next day. No one knows if the treatment happened or didn't happen, because you can't be there to guarantee it. So those students come back to school expecting it to have happened and move forward accordingly.
And that confirmation, our current policy it does state that we are performing a check to perform or to verify that there are no live lice, correct? So that under our current policy, we are doing a verification that they're good before putting them back into their classroom, correct?
I believe, I
Okay.
think, yes.
Yep, it says, after treatment and upon return to school, the child will be examined by the school health staff or principal.
Okay.
And part of the spirit of the policy is that they're not necessarily experts in determining what is live or what isn't live. And depending on when they return to school, if it's the next day and they have a check, do we really know if the treatment happened or didn't happen?
Okay. And then just looking at the data over the past 3 years, so that is 140 cumulative, correct? That's not 140 each year, correct?
Correct, that's cumulative over 3 years.
So roughly 50 students, 40 days a year. What is that in percentage of all of our absences? I guess even within that age range, is this a 10%? Is this a 20% factor? I guess where does this reasoning lie for absences?
I don't have the exact data. I would say it's not a large percentage of our total absences, is what I would confidently say.
Okay. So if we were looking to, I guess going back to some of the first comments of, the absence, if we're really trying to drive down absences and prevent loss of household incomes, this is not necessarily the big hitter, heavy hitter of that. Okay. All right. So, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, I'm really having my trouble wrapping my head around something. So, as someone that does know quite a bit about head lice over the 30 years I taught, live lice are extremely mobile, and I've watched them jump. When a child has live head lice, they are moving, and that's why when heads are together, that's why it's so transmissible. The nits, on the other hand, they're just eggs. When a child is sent home with live lice, it's really important that when they come back, somebody takes a look to make sure there's no live lice. And you can tell if there's just the nits there and they didn't get all the eggs out. That's different. You can just send them home again, let the parent know, well, there's still some eggs, but as long as there's no live lice, because live lice are water contagious. The eggs are not. The eggs are adhered to the strands of hair, and they're not going anywhere. But live lice, on the other hand, it moves, it crawls, it hops. I've watched it with my own eyes, so I don't know why this is suddenly saying it's not a contagion. It definitely is. I can't wrap my head around the reentry to school. I understand we want it to be as discreet as possible, to have it be on the honor system, but again, for the rest of the students in the classroom, it would just, I guess I don't understand why we're moving to take that part of it out, that someone, the school nurse, maybe at the beginning of the day, takes a look and just follows up. I mean, I understand the honor system, but again, maybe the parent they've never done it, maybe they didn't, use it as thoroughly, but just so someone's aware of what the status is with regard to the live lice. That's where I'm struggling. Why we're taking that out, that recheck.
Yeah, and the recommendation is because if you're keeping a student at school, because it is a non-communicable disease that doesn't make anyone sick, again, the recommendation from these entities, then when they come back, you're not going to send them back home because they've been treated, they're moving in the right direction. So you're going to continue to keep them at school for the same reason you're going to keep them at school when you discover it on day 1 versus day 2 or day 3. So.
And that goes with the premise that they have been treated, because sometimes they say they've been treated, but really things didn't move, whether mom or dad, someone had to work, they didn't get to it. That's why that follow-up is important, because, things happen, life happens, parents are busy, they're with the babysitter didn't feel comfortable using that kind of, treatment on the child. I'm just not comfortable with the coming back and not really having a follow-up. I understand what you said too, Ms. Kozlowski. If a student is found to have live lice, I'm also not comfortable having them just continue their school day, whether it's the rest of the afternoon, the last hour. Because again, when you're, especially the young students, when you're in that age group and, they're interacting, their heads are together, it does spread extremely fast. And as a parent that had that happen and having to treat my own kids because of an infestation in the classroom, I want to take that into consideration for the rest of the students, to, again, protect, them from exposure to live lice. Again, nits are different. That's something that can be treated a couple days later with the comb. It's a tedious process. It really is. But the live nits, I think, are a little bit more concerning for me, just from the perspective of being a teacher and a parent and seeing both directions it went. So like I said, I'm not really, really comfortable with no one's following up after to see how things went. But
Very good. Go ahead, Ms. Kozlowski.
So, Mr. Pat, I think I'd like just to make a recommendation, just a couple changes to the policy. So in the first paragraph, I would move to strike lice are a nuisance but do not spread disease. They do spread. I understand that we're not calling it a communicable disease, but they do indeed spread. And if you have been a family where you have been revisited by this several times, it's pretty bad. The other piece then in procedures that I would like students, first bullet point, students suspected will be referred to trained staff and where's the I would like them picked up immediately. I'd like to go back to what that part was. And then returning to the classroom after treatment, I think is fine. I'm just trying to find that. Oh, it's second bullet point under procedures. If live lice are found, the student must be picked up. The parent will be contacted to have the child treated to pick him or her up immediately, which is the first sentence that's of the striked out on the bottom. And I don't think that, I'm comfortable. I think that the policy clearly states that it is up to the parent to ensure that this is checked and that they can return to school the next day after treatment. But that, I would recommend those modifications.
I would also like to make an addendum to the policy. I would like to continue keeping in the line of the child will be examined.
Okay, hold on.
I'm sorry.
So
I might have said it wrong.
I think we need to just be careful of what my recommendation is, so it hasn't been moved or motioned.
Oh, okay.
So are you asking to keep the recommendations that I have and add one piece?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say at this point, we're not ready to, I'm not hearing that we're going to make a motion to approve a final policy to move forward
Well, I can
tonight.
easily do that.
Do we want to send it back to go through additional revisions to add in? Because what I'm hearing is that you want to still send the individual home immediately, but you're okay with bringing back without a check from a school
Correct.
staff, correct? And you are wanting to have the school staff member check?
I think I could, I personally feel there should be some sort of a follow-up. Whether it's a week later, there should be some sort of a follow-up with the student or even a phone call with the parent. How did it go? Check the student. I think there should be a follow-up of some sort.
Sorry, are you wanting to make a motion?
I would
or-
want to just go back. I
Okay.
think there's, I don't necessarily disagree, but I do believe that this policy, and it clearly states that it falls on the responsibility of the parent to ensure that this is treated. And where I want to be very cautious as to what I'm asking the school district to become responsible for versus the parent. And so pushing that on there, that's my only viewpoint on that, on your comment.
I would agree with that.
The school district is already responsible for verifying, so you're wanting to remove that off of the responsibility under the new
Not
policy?
reentry.
The reentry, we don't have to.
We removed from the policy that we would have them be rechecked. That's the striked out very last bottom.
Current policy is that after treatment and upon returning to school, the child will be examined by school health staff or principal. So we are currently having a member of our staff verify that. Is that correct, Mr. Pat? Under current policy?
Yes. So some of the things of what's in front of you as a proposed policy in what I have is under procedures, bullet point 2. What I heard was if live lice are found, I cross that off and put students will be picked up from school immediately. So currently, live lice, there's no checks that are done. There's no whole class checks. That's not something we do. It is noticed and then it happens. So that's what I changed in bullet 2, and then I struck bullet 2 from reentry to school, which is what was talked about for some changes to what's in front of you. So I crossed off routine rechecks are not required, or I'm sorry, that would stay. That would stay.
I know we had commented that we are currently sending out letters to the class about a instance or occurrence being found. I don't see anything about that in the policy as being part of the procedure of who would be responsible for sending that out. Is that something that could also be added into this as under the procedures?
It's not in our current policy either. It's just a practice that we have done. If it's something that we want to put in there, we definitely can. I think the general component of it is that I think the teaching of parents and providing some of the resources. But again, I hear what you're saying. It's more when it happens, that communication. So of course they're communicated with because the child is coming, right, is going home, et cetera. It's the whole class communication that
Correct.
we can definitely add.
Okay.
Put it under procedures.
I would say that would fit well under procedures.
Okay.
So based on that, I would just have him bring it back.
Okay. So I don't believe we are ready tonight to make a motion on this policy. So we can bring that back in a future meeting with the recommended edits. So, thank you very much. On to discussion items. Our first discussion item was a behavior data update. So behavior data is one of our KPIs that we are looking at. We didn't quite get the information prepared for this meeting, so we'll have it ready for our August meeting, as we are not meeting in July. And then our second discussion item is the CISA 1 partnership.
All right, thank you, Mr. Harlan. So CISA 1 partnership, again, trying to take over the screen here. All right, so CISA 1, the state of Wisconsin has 7 CISA districts that are co-ops that really support schools that exist within those boundaries. We have partnered with them for many years, and just wanted to really provide you a preview of some of those services. We have signed a contract with them on an annual basis. So what do they do and what does that look like? And so with the CISA membership, we get we do pay a fee for that basic membership. We get basic services that include consultation when we call. They have experts that can support us in certain practices. They obviously work with multiple school districts and have really good knowledge around what other districts are doing. They have area meetings that we're part of. They'll have legal series and other aspects that, as part of that membership, we can go and learn as part of the membership. Sharing of resources, potential job-like means, discount pricing, we do utilize them for specific professional development, for certain educators. Again, they have great knowledge with the other CISA connections of state-type contracts. So when we're looking for resources and looking for partnerships, oftentimes we will take advantage of that membership we have and go from there. And the agency provides access to our members for consortium projects and grants, so we get information in regards to what's happening at the state level through them. So they also run several alternative programs that we, along with the other area schools, there are, I believe, 26 who pay for membership to CISA 1. So the first one that we utilize is Turning Point. Turning Point is a K-8 school, and this is for students who have IEPs only. Obviously, the alternative school exists because the regular education environment within our school district is not helping the student be successful. After multiple attempts and lots of communication, this comes into play, and students have success in these programs that come from our school district and others. The school is flexible in meeting students where they're at academically, so a lot of alternative schools are credit recovery based, and Turning Point does offer that, but it also has students who are at grade level and offers grade level curricular work along with acceleration and remediation, K through 8. They could also be working through a customized program, as I said, to recover skills, so that might be a credit recovery or some specific, again, remediation that will get them to that grade level proficiency. It's located in West Dallas. And then looking at the ratios for elementary students that are younger, it's 1 staff member to 3 students. And then middle school is 1 staff member to 4 students. It's more similar to a traditional school schedule. And then Turning Point has the highest number of Waukesha students enrolled of all the CISA schools I'm going to go through. And we utilize that program quite a bit, K through 8. So Distinguished Scholars Academy, again, kind of notice some of the subtle differences, but they are the big differences, is a K through 5th grade that services students who have IEPs in the area of autism specifically. These students in regular school settings present a behavioral concern, and students who are there work on daily functional skills highlighted by communication and self-regulation. Obviously, sometimes being able to communicate what you want to communicate can be very frustrating, and then how do you come back from that? And those are really areas of focus for that. Also in West Dallas, it's a shortened daily schedule, and we have 3 staff members for every 2 students. So very close proximity to support students who are in need. Next, we have New Connections. This is a 9th and 10th grade school that services students who have IEPs only. Once again, the school is flexible in meeting students where they're at academically. Students at New Connections may receive grade level curriculum with acceleration or remediation. Again, it's just 9th and 10th grade versus K through 8 from the other school who also has the same type of program. They could be working on credit recovery as well. It is located in West Dallas, and again, it's more similar to a traditional school schedule. Staff to student ratio is 1 to 4. Project Success is 11th and 12th grade, so different grade level, and it services students who have IEPs only. It's a credit recovery school only. It's a shortened daily schedule. This is where students need to go for a shorter amount of time to focus on recovering credits, and it has a staff to student ratio of 1 to 4. Moving on to Project Success and Learning Center West. This is a 9th through 12th grade program that services students who have IEPs only. They may receive grade level work along with acceleration or remediation. Once again, it's located in Pewaukee. The difference to this is a shortened program as well. It is 9 through 12, not just 11th and 12th grade or 9th and 10th grade. It services a larger range of students, and it is 1 to 4 staff to student ratio. So really the difference between some of the other ones is a shortened schedule for a larger group of students. New Pathways is another program for us that we utilize 9 through 12, and this is for students who do not have IEPs. This is for students who are at risk of not graduating high school. It's a self-paced credit recovery program. It also offers a GITO 2 option for students who are looking for a high school equivalency diploma. So GITO 2 is a program that you have to apply for and run properly, and CISA 1 does this, but it is really a battery of tests that are at grade level proficiencies. There's an entire process to prepare for those tests that is part of the program, and students have different skill levels and at different places. But if this is a process or a program they go through, they study for those tests, and then they take those in the core areas and can earn an actual high school credit diploma. And that's what the GITO option 2 allows, so that's an option at New Pathways. It's located in Pewaukee. It is a shortened daily schedule. Staff to student ratio is 1 to 4, and it's the alternative to the alternative. So there's a reason that the students go to these schools, and I want to reiterate, they were not having success in any one of our programs, including East High School, where we have an alternative program that services students. If students are not having success there, these staff to student ratios through CISA are much smaller and can really be supportive of students in meeting their needs. Other things that we pay for through CISA 1 in the partnership is we do pay for some speech and language pathology. And looking at some of the students that will go to some of these schools, they are in need of some of those speeches, primarily at the elementary level. And that's just something that we pay for, and that varies from year to year. Some years not at all, other years more of a cost. Again, that's student specific. And another thing we get from our CISA partnership is a Parents United consortium. So this is something that is really an outreach component. Parents United is something that any one of these member districts, so I also showed the visual because you can see how many schools also partner with CISA and have a similar experience of solid programs they provide that we contract with them for. And any parents from there can be part of the consortium. What that is it's education for parents. So to give you an idea of some of the education that happens, some of the professional development that parents can go to, and they do a combination of face-to-face that parents who have knowledge of it can go to. They have understanding stress and anxiety, promoting resilience in youth, IEP boot camp to support families preparing for IEP meetings. And it's really parents who have students who have IEPs that generally are part of this, and then can get information trying to navigate that, especially young families that this happens for the first time. Understanding the mental health needs of today's youth, supporting students with ADHD, and transition service option resources in our area. So they really pull in resources from all over to support parents. Karen Knopf, who you heard from earlier this year in our series of the job of, she is our community outreach individual. So she is working with this and really going to promote this within our parent community to have more awareness of this option. So that has been with CISA for the past couple of years, and something that's important for community outreach and support of parents. So just in summary, each program has very low student to staff ratios. One of the things they do as well is with those low student to staff ratios, every 15 minutes they're actually gathering data. They're very comprehensive in the success students are or are not having, and what sets them off, what helps them have success. So they are allowed to, because of that ratio, and then they can really wrap around kids and be more specific, where when you have some of our programs, they're a little bigger ratios, and you can't be maybe at that micro level the way you'd like to be for certain students. So we have a positive partnership with them, as evidenced by the districts who partner that I showed, who also have their services, and then we have partnered with them for many years, and the experience of the directors has been very, very positive, including myself. So any questions you have on our CISA 1 partnership?
Ms. Kozlowski.
Thanks. Can you remind me what the annual membership is for CISA?
The annual membership cost is $4,000.
And so we pay that just to be a member, and with that membership allows our students to have opportunities to any variation of these. So how do we decide what partnership is best for them? Is that part of the IEP discussions?
As far as each of the schools that I went through, how do we decide that? Yes. So the directors have really good working knowledge of the programs and how they're servicing students. And every student is unique, but the IEP will have certain characteristics that might lend itself well to one of the programs. Parents have the opportunity to explore those programs, talk with the directors of those programs. It's not just our decision, it's an IEP team decision for any placement. So that is all part of the process. And then once they see that and do the connection, if they feel it's a good fit and the team agrees, then parents can have their student move there.
And that is an additional cost once they transfer.
Correct. All of these schools have a cost per pupil.
Got it. Thank you.
Mr. Brooks?
Thank you. So just kind of looking at the descriptions of a lot of these courses, obviously, it seems like it's geared more towards those like really high needs students with IEPs, not that they're prohibitive of, it's open to pretty much everybody, but just looking at the ratios, it seems like that's kind of the goal. I know you mentioned that the Turning Point program is the one that has the highest amount of Waukesha students. How many school district Waukesha students overall are enrolled in one of these programs? And you might not have this statistic right now, but of those students who are enrolled, what percentage of all kids with IEPs in our district does that make up?
So the enrollment, approximate enrollment, so it does vary if we have a certain number of seats, so we kind of predict that number of seats prior to. So for next year, we are predicting about 15 students to be part of all of those programs total, which is a very small percentage of our entire special education student population.
Right, which again makes sense just given the fact that this is kind of geared more towards the students who have a lot of them, the huge one-on-one needs and services that go beyond what we're able to provide them here. So that makes sense. But thank you.
You had mentioned that we're forecasting 15 seats for next year. Is there a way to trade or buy additional seats if we, Or is that 4,000 is just for that year? Does that go up if we look for additional seats? If we are forecasting fewer seats, is that variable, or is the 4,000 regardless?
The 4,000 is our membership, so that's regardless, and that provides us, discount on professional development. So we will utilize them on an annual basis for individuals to come in to support our professional development because of their connections with the state of Wisconsin and some of the work we have to do with DPI and things like that. So it does vary. It starts with that, and that is what we have to put students into. If we have a greater need, we can ask for more seats. There's not always a guarantee of it, but generally there is, because they maintain ratios and they want to have a quality program. So generally, we end up in our predictions probably spending a little bit more based on the rise in students who statewide, district-wide, nationwide, who receive IEPs. But this is where we start, and we do that with a conversation with directors and teachers to really see what we feel needs will be. But in any given year, you never know who will come to this district, move into our community, or move out, and that's where the variables exist.
And then what does graduating from one of these partner schools look like? Do they come back into a SDW facility, or do they simply graduate through Project Success Parkway at that point?
They're welcome to come back for graduation for us, but it's really up to the student. Many students choose not to, and the programs were different, so there's a couple of high school level programs, but oftentimes they're kind of on a different pathway, and they don't come back to us, but they can and walk for graduation.
Mr. Brooks?
So the various programs are located, you mentioned West Dallas, Pewaukee. How does transportation work for these students? Is that provided by the district? Is that provided by, is it kind of up to the parents, or can you just speak a little bit more to that?
Yes, generally, if the IEP warrants transportation for the student, it's all driven through the IEP, so that'll be a discussion with the entire IEP team and everyone involved. Most of the time, transportation is provided there. How that happens, so if we have a multitude of students, for example, Turning Point has 7-ish students right now, then we have a bus that goes there. That's a pretty effective transportation option, but it is driven by the IEP.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. All right, well, thank you for that. And then looking forward to other business, are there any recommendations for future meetings? All right, very good. Seeing none. That doesn't conclude our agenda for tonight. We will not be back in July, but all the way to August 5th. So thank you and have a good night.